Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Before I say anything comforting, I need you to feel this. If a woman thinks about you constantly, it's rarely loud, it's quiet, it's invisible. And that's what makes it dangerous to misunderstand. Right now, somewhere in your past or present, there is a woman whose mind keeps returning to you when the world finally goes silent. And the reason you don't notice is the same reason it's real. That thought should make your chest tighten a little. Good, stay with me. Before we go deeper, take a second to subscribe to the channel and like this video, not for me, for you. Because what we're about to unpack will change how you read women forever. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. I'm speaking to you as a psychologist, but also as a woman who understands how men are kept just far enough from the truth to stay confused. When a woman thinks about you all the time, she does not chase. She does not flood you with messages. She does not make it obvious. Obsession, in healthy women, goes inward first. It becomes private, controlled, strategic. Here is the first proof she thinks about you constantly. She remembers the version of you that felt seen, not the version you try to perform. She reacts to small shifts in your mood before you ever explain them. She asks questions that seem casual, but land too close to the truth. That's not coincidence. That's mental rehearsal. She's already had conversations with you in her head. Arguments, reconciliations, moments of closeness, long before they happen in real life. You need to understand something most men never learn. When a woman can't stop thinking about you, her nervous system treats you like unfinished business. Her mind keeps returning to you, not because you are perfect, but because you activated something unresolved inside her. Familiar pain, familiar safety, familiar intensity. That's why her attention feels inconsistent, hot one moment, distant the next. She's regulating how much access you get to her inner world. If she goes quiet after a deep moment, that silence is not disinterest, it's containment. She's replaying what you said, how you looked at her, what it might mean if she lets herself want more. Women don't obsess loudly, they obsess deeply. And here's the part you were never supposed to know. If she thinks about you all the time, she's already imagined losing you, and the way she behaves around you now is shaped by that fear. If she thinks about you all the time, you'll notice something subtle but unsettling. She mirrors your emotional rhythm without realizing it. Not your words, not your habits, your internal tempo. When you pull back, she becomes more reflective. When you lean in emotionally, she opens in ways that feel almost timed. That's not manipulation, that's attunement. Her mind is already aligned with yours because you occupy space there, even when you're absent. A woman who isn't thinking about you lives in the moment with you. A woman who is thinking about you lives ahead of the moment. She anticipates how things could shift. She weighs consequences. She notices patterns before you do. This is why her reactions sometimes feel delayed. She's not confused. She's calculating emotional risk. And that calculation only happens when someone matters. Here's a truth that unsettles most men. When a woman thinks about you constantly, she starts protecting herself from you. Not because you've done something wrong, but because her feelings are outpacing the safety of certainty. She may joke when things get serious. She may change the subject when vulnerability appears. That's not avoidance, that's containment. She's holding back the part of herself that's already leaning toward you. Pay attention to how she listens. Not the polite nodding, but the pauses. The moments where she stops you mid-sentence and asks you to explain what you meant. The way she remembers details you assumed were forgettable. A woman doesn't store information like that unless she revisits it, over and over, in her mind, at night, in quiet moments, when she's alone. Another proof she thinks about you constantly is how she tests emotional gravity without calling it a test. She'll bring up hypothetical situations. She'll mention other men casually, not to make you jealous, but to observe your emotional temperature. She's watching for signs of investment, stability, and presence. Her mind is asking questions she hasn't voiced yet. Would he choose me? Would he stay? Would he disappear if I let myself feel this fully? And here's the part men misread the most. If she sometimes treats you like you're closer than you actually are, it's because emotionally, you already are. Her inner world has already placed you in a role you haven't officially earned yet. That tension you feel around her, that's the gap between where she feels you are and where reality currently stands. When a woman thinks about you all the time, She doesn't fall recklessly. She braces carefully. And every careful woman is thinking more than she's saying. When a woman thinks about you all the time, her behavior becomes paradoxical. She may appear composed, even distant, while internally she is anything but calm. This is because constant thought creates emotional pressure, and pressure seeks control. She controls herself so she doesn't lose you or herself. Most men interpret this restraint as lack of interest. That mistake costs them women who were already emotionally invested. Notice how she responds after meaningful interactions. If she pulls back slightly, becomes more measured, or takes longer to reply, that's not cooling off. That's integration. She's replaying the moment, analyzing what it meant, how much she revealed, and whether it shifted the balance between you. Women who don't care, don't reflect. They move on. Reflection is evidence of attachment. There's another sign that rarely gets talked about. She becomes more intentional with her words. When a woman isn't thinking about you, she speaks freely. When she is, she chooses carefully. She edits herself mid-sentence. She watches your face when she says something vulnerable. She notices your tone changes. That level of monitoring only happens when someone's opinion carries weight. A woman who thinks about you often will also protect the connection from contamination. She avoids unnecessary conflict. She downplays her jealousy. She keeps certain feelings unspoken. Not because she's dishonest, but because she's preserving something fragile. In her mind, what exists between you is still forming, and she doesn't want to crack it with emotional volatility. You may also notice that she checks in emotionally, without appearing to. She'll ask how your day was, but what she's really asking is whether you're okay, whether something has shifted, whether she still has access to you. Her mind is constantly scanning for changes, because you've become a variable in her emotional stability. Here's a psychological truth most men never hear. Women think most about the man who makes them question themselves, not their worth, but their emotional certainty. If she's thinking about you all the time, it's because you've disrupted a narrative she was comfortable with. You made her feel something she hadn't planned for, and unplanned emotions demand attention. That's why she may seek reassurance indirectly. She might mention something personal to see if you remember later. She might reference a shared moment to test its significance to you. These are not games. They are data-gathering behaviors driven by emotional investment. If a woman didn't think about you, she wouldn't care if you noticed. When she does, every small response from you becomes information, and information is only valuable when the outcome matters to her. When a woman thinks about you all the time, her imagination becomes more active than her actions. This is where men get misled. You expect desire to show up as pursuit, as escalation, as something visible. But for women, constant thought shows up as mental presence. You live in her head during ordinary moments, while she's driving, folding laundry, scrolling her phone, lying awake at night. And because those moments are private, you never see the depth of it. One of the clearest proofs is this. She mentally consults you even when you're not there. She asks herself what you'd think, how you'd react, whether you'd approve. That's not dependency. That's significance. You've become an internal reference point. And people don't become reference points unless they matter deeply. You might notice she brings up things you mentioned weeks ago, out of context. A movie you said you liked, a value you casually expressed, a frustration you brushed off. She didn't remember those things by accident. She stored them because she revisited them over and over. Thought is repetition, and repetition is attachment. Another sign is how she manages proximity. She doesn't want too much too fast, but she doesn't want distance either. She'll create moments that feel intimate but contained. Long conversations without labels. Emotional openness without commitment. That's her mind trying to balance desire and safety. If she wasn't thinking about you constantly, she wouldn't need that balance. She'd either move on or move in fully. Watch how she reacts when you show consistency. Not intensity, consistency. When you show up the same way twice, 3 times, 4 times, her body language softens, her voice lowers, her guard drops just a little. That's because consistency quiets the anxiety created by constant thought. Her nervous system starts to believe you're not just an idea, you're stable. There's also a darker sign most men overlook. If she sometimes seems emotionally tired around you, it's because thinking takes energy, caring takes energy. Managing feelings she hasn't fully expressed takes energy. You're not draining her, you're occupying mental space, and mental space is finite. A woman who isn't thinking about you feels light around you, casual, easy. A woman who is thinking about you feels weight, not burden, but gravity. Something about you pulls her inward, makes her slower, more deliberate. That gravity is not accidental. And here's the truth you need to sit with. When a woman thinks about you all the time, she's already negotiating the risk of heartbreak. Long before you know how you feel, she's already measuring how much it would hurt to lose you. That calculation alone proves how present you are in her mind. When a woman thinks about you all the time, she begins to notice patterns in herself, emotions, desires, hesitations that she didn't before. You become a mirror for her subconscious, reflecting feelings she might not even admit to herself. That's why she sometimes acts conflicted. She isn't confused about you. She's confused about how much she wants to let herself care. Men mistake this inner conflict for disinterest, but it's actually proof that you occupy her mind more than she lets on. She will also create mental replays of your interactions. The conversation you thought she forgot, she's gone over it 10 times. The joke you made in passing, she's remembered the way you said it, the exact inflection, the context, and she smiles or flinches depending on what it triggered. This is not overthinking. This is emotional rehearsal. Women do this for the people who matter, unconsciously practicing interactions, weighing outcomes, imagining future scenarios where you appear. Pay attention to how she engages indirectly. She may share a song, a meme, or even a fleeting thought with you that seems casual. It's not coincidence, it's a breadcrumb, a signal sent from the part of her mind that's constantly circling back to you. She's curious about your reaction, not in a manipulative way, but in a deeply invested one. She's testing whether her internal world aligns with yours in reality. Another subtle sign is how she gauges your attention. If she catches you observing her, even briefly, she might pause, adjust, or smile quietly. That micro moment matters, because it's a reflection of her awareness. She's monitoring how much you see of her, just as she monitors how much she lets herself think of you. This isn't about games, it's about emotional preservation. She also remembers emotional triggers, and avoids them or revisits them selectively. If something embarrassed or hurt her, she might carefully test it again with you. Subtle, indirect, safe, her mind is learning you, cataloging you, preparing to see if you fit into a deeper space she's carving in her life. This is intentionality disguised as casual interaction. The most overlooked proof is her emotional residue. After a brief encounter, she may seem quiet, distant, or introspective. That's not lack of interest, that's processing. Even minutes after you part, your presence lingers in her thoughts, subtly influencing her mood. When a woman thinks about you constantly, she experiences this residue repeatedly. And here's the uncomfortable truth. She's already weighing risk and reward. The reward of closeness with you, the risk of vulnerability. Every decision she makes around you is influenced by how often you appear in her mind and how much power that presence holds. You are already significant to her, even if she hasn't told you yet. When a woman thinks about you all the time, her attention to detail becomes uncanny. She notices the small things most men assume go unseen. A subtle change in your tone, the way you hold your phone, the faint stress in your posture. These aren't conscious observations. Her brain catalogs patterns, creating a mental map of you. You're being measured in ways you'll never fully realize, not for judgment, but for emotional understanding. She's learning who you are beneath the surface because she's already invested in your inner world. You may also notice she tests boundaries without obvious confrontation. She asks questions that probe your values, your priorities, or your reactions, but under the guise of casual conversation. She's gauging your responses, your emotional range, and your stability. That's not manipulation, that's strategy. She's trying to understand if you match the person she's building in her imagination, the version of you she revisits when no one else is watching. Another sign is how she remembers shared experiences. The memory of a joke you laughed at together, a story you told, or a glance you shared isn't just nostalgia, it's evidence of her attention. When a woman thinks about you constantly, she stores moments you consider trivial, because those moments carry emotional significance for her. You may forget them, but they linger in her mind like bookmarks, reminding her of what matters and why you matter. She also engages in mental what-if scenarios. She imagines conversations that never happened, outcomes that may never occur, and moments that only exist in her mind. These imaginings are more revealing than anything she says out loud. They show where her attention truly lives, on you. The intensity of these thoughts often creates subtle behaviors, hesitation, soft smiles, fleeting looks that hint at the depth of her focus. You might notice that she rarely expresses everything she feels. Silence, pauses, and subtle avoidance aren't signs of disinterest, they're mechanisms to protect herself. Constant thought creates emotional intensity, and intensity without control can feel overwhelming. By holding back, she manages the risk of being hurt while still maintaining her connection to you mentally. Here's a truth most men miss. Women don't obsess with people they don't care about. The fact that she carries you in her mind, through reflection, imagination, and quiet observation, signals a level of attachment you can't manufacture. Even her moments of seeming detachment are governed by how present you are in her subconscious. And the hardest part to grasp? She doesn't always tell you. She thinks about you silently, consistently, strategically. Her mind is a space where you already exist, even if your reality hasn't caught up yet. The proof of her focus is not in words, it's in what lingers, what repeats, and what she guards carefully. When a woman thinks about you all the time, her emotional calibration changes. You may notice subtle shifts in her energy. She laughs softer around you, pauses before she speaks, or leans in just slightly when the conversation matters. These micro-adjustments aren't accidental. They're the product of her internal rehearsal. She's constantly testing how your presence affects her, how much closeness she can allow without feeling exposed. That tension is magnetic, and most men misread it as mixed signals. She also unconsciously mirrors your desires and moods. If you're calm, she becomes calm. If you're excited, she elevates her energy to match yours. It's not mimicry, it's subconscious synchronization. Women who think about someone consistently create mental loops where they anticipate how you'll respond, how you'll feel, and how interactions could evolve. That anticipation can make her seem distant at times, because her mind is always one step ahead. Another proof lies in her selective vulnerability. She doesn't give everything away, but what she does reveal is layered with meaning. A passing comment about her day, a small personal story, a fleeting glance, they're all deliberate disclosures, revealing trust in the fact that you're important enough to register. You may underestimate them, but every fragment is proof that you occupy her internal landscape. She will also exhibit emotional tethering. That's a fancy way of saying your presence lingers in her system even after you leave. You might think a conversation ended, but she's replaying it, analyzing, feeling, imagining, long after. If she didn't care, she would move on, as most people do. The fact that she continues processing interactions shows she's invested mentally, emotionally, and unconsciously. Here's something men rarely see. She may try to provoke a reaction without knowing it. A subtle comment, a playful tease, or a slightly challenging statement. These are ways to gauge how you feel, without risking full disclosure. She's collecting emotional data, mapping how her attention affects you, and adjusting her own behavior accordingly. That effort is invisible but powerful. You'll notice she's protective of her thoughts about you. She won't reveal every mental rehearsal or emotional calculation, because part of her wants to see if you show up consistently, if you match her intensity, if you're worthy of the space she's reserved in her mind. She's holding something precious, her focus, and she measures carefully who receives it. And the hardest truth? Even if she never tells you directly, even if her words seem casual or neutral, her mind is occupied with you constantly. She's invested in outcomes you may not realize exist yet. That mental investment, quiet, relentless, invisible, is the ultimate proof that you're already significant in her world. When a woman thinks about you all the time, her behavior is layered, deliberate, and often invisible to the untrained eye. She doesn't need to flood your messages, chase you, or announce her feelings. She doesn't have to. Her mind does the work for her. You exist in her imagination constantly. Rehearsed conversations, anticipated touch, imagined laughter, replayed glances. That mental presence shapes how she moves in the real world around you, whether she admits it or not. You'll notice moments when she seems slightly distant, hesitant, or even guarded. That's not rejection. That's the weight of carrying a secret reality. She's emotionally present with you, more than she can physically show. Women who obsess silently manage their feelings carefully. They cannot risk breaking her own control, and that control is proof. Proof that you matter enough to be both cherished and protected in her mind. She also leaves traces, tiny markers of her thought, a song shared, a story repeated, a fleeting smile when something reminds her of you. These breadcrumbs are invisible to the casual observer, but glaringly obvious if you know what to watch for. Every small gesture carries significance because it's filtered through constant mental attention. She's testing whether you notice, whether you reciprocate, whether you can hold the same space in your mind that she does in hers. Another undeniable sign is the emotional residue you leave behind. After a brief interaction, she may seem preoccupied, reflective, or unusually quiet. That's not indifference, it's processing. She's replaying your words, your presence, your energy, calculating how they fit into her internal map of you. Even your smallest actions can echo in her thoughts for hours, even days. A woman who thinks about you constantly will also protect the connection. She might avoid pushing too hard, appearing cautious or reserved. That's not lack of interest, it's strategy. She's weighing the cost of exposure versus the reward of closeness. Her restraint is proof of depth, not distance. Here's the ultimate truth most men never hear. When she thinks about you constantly, she has already imagined both possibilities, losing you and keeping you. Every decision, every hesitation, every small smile is influenced by that constant presence of you in her mind. So if you've noticed the subtle signs, the reflections, the quiet observations, the mental replays, the emotional tethering, don't underestimate them. You are already occupying a space in her world that few men ever reach. And the power of that knowledge, it gives you the ability to recognize when someone values you silently, deeply, and relentlessly. You are already significant. She just hasn't said it out loud yet.